Hey, welcome to Ep.3 on Chewing the Fat. I have someone very special with me today. And before I go deep into conversating, I want to tell you about the Mark Hanson that I knew from Mark's, the OG of the restaurant scene, who I didn't know, but I knew of him. So before I even moved to Stillwater, people would be like, hey, come out to eat. We're going to go to Mark's. And I was like, couldn't get in, and the drinks were amazing, and the food was like something you'd see in a magazine. And I really feel like I'm newer to Stillwater, been here about 10 years, but I feel like he probably put us on the map with the food that he served, and everybody calls him the OG. So, Mr. Mark Hanson, how are you?
Well, first thing I got to say, how much do I have to pay you for that intro?
Well, you did give me
That's
a
the
little
nicest thing
tequila.
anybody's said about me in a long time. So
Oh,
that's very kind. Thank you.
oh, yeah, you're welcome. And by the way, we put a drink together. Cheers. Right before we got started, and Mark helped me because he has an infinitely good palate, and it's carrot juice, some tequila, Joe Elon's habanero like special sauce, which was delightful, and what else? Simple.
Simple syrup.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, just looking for that. That's kind of my go-to drink is a spicy tequila drink, as
Spicy
the guys
tequila.
at Proper know. So
Oh,
I've gotten
okay.
quite a few of them at Proper. So
Okay.
they know all about it. So
Do you have a spicier palate?
I do.
Okay. All right.
I do.
Well, tell me how you got started in the restaurant business in the first place.
Sure. It's actually really people get a kick out of this. My first cooking job was actually at Mickey's Diner, not the one in downtown St.
Okay.
Not the one in downtown St. Paul, but the one on West Seventh Street
Yeah.
by Sibley Manor Plaza, and that's where
Okay.
I grew up, right off of West Seventh Street by Sibley Manor Plaza.
Okay.
And yeah, I was in high school playing football, playing lots of sports, and it was just a part-time job. I mean, I started out washing dishes, and
Yes.
then after.
That makes me so happy because isn't it those early exposures that have big impact, which for you was major, but take your first job seriously. You can learn a lot, right?
Well, and I had other jobs before that. I mean,
Mm.
well, and like I said, being from the, Iron Range, but I mean, I literally started working when I was, I joke 7 or 8 years old, just walking around. I grew up in St. Paul, and walking around the block, and during the winter, it was like just shoveling off steps and driveways and
Yeah.
just getting paid 50 cents.
Yeah. 50
Literally,
cents an hour or just 50
oh
cents
my
total?
gosh. No, just flat. It was just flat.
Yeah.
50 cents, and just shoving off somebody's sidewalk. And then during the summer, I walked around the block with literally a pair of like garden shears in my hand. And, there's people had fences usually
Yeah.
in the backyard, and then you had push mowers, and you couldn't get underneath the fence. And so then so I would go and clip the grass underneath your fence, and everybody
Oh.
went for that. And that was another 50
So,
cents.
like, were you door to door saying, can I clip
Yes.
your grass under the
Yeah.
fence? Whew, that's some good hustle. Okay, I like
But
that.
anyway, so yeah, that work ethic I think started early, just because
Yeah.
I like making money.
That's fair.
But no, anyway, so I was playing ball, and so I was like, yeah, maybe I was like 15 or 16, and just a part-time gig, like I think actually some night shifts, like 11 to 7, like on a weekend, because I had the
Jeez.
time.
Yeah.
And after about 2-3 weeks, all of a sudden, I guess a cook didn't show up, and they asked the 16-year-old dishwasher if he wanted to cook. I go, I don't know how to cook. I mean, I know how to bake with my mother, making cookies and blueberry muffins, and so started cooking. I mean, very gradually, and
Yeah.
but it was just a part-time gig. But that and it was, I enjoyed it.
What did you cook? Like, what did they serve there? Classic diner food?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, and it was, you know what? It was rather interesting too, because it's still there, and we did a lot of work even then in a saute pan on fires. So I mean, they had a grill, and you put pancakes and the usual things on the grill, but we would do eggs and omelets, and we were known for our omelets, and it was really interesting. They had an old style, like I forget, like a milkshake mixer where
Yeah.
you put it up to
Yeah.
the make malts or whatever. And so that's what they did. It was a 3-egg omelet, put it on that, and
Oh,
aerate it so that it got, just a lot of air. And then you put that in a pan with, lots of butter.
yeah.
And
Magic maker.
and it made this, really, fluffy souffled omelet. And so at a young age, I didn't even know what a souffle was, but the omelets would get really puffy about 6 inches. I mean, really.
I still don't know what a souffle is. Does that mean it's a fluffy something?
Yeah, a lot
It's
of
a
air.
fluffy, a lot of air.
Lot of air.
Okay.
So it would come, and then it would come to your table. This is a diner, and I mean, it was like, and you fold it. It was like literally. I mean, it would deflate kind of quick, but
Yeah.
And then of course you put cheese or ham or mushrooms or whatever you want to put in it. But
Yeah.
but it was a beautiful,
Beautiful omelet.
It was a beautiful omelet.
Did you sit there and someone's teaching you, and do you feel this like starting to bubble, this interest?
No, not at all. Not during that time. But I did like it. So I mean, it was an open or you could see the kid. I mean,
Yeah.
you cooked right in front of people.
Yeah.
And that's a little unnerving, but when you're 16, you don't care. It
Yeah.
didn't bother you. So
Yeah.
no nerves there. But I liked it. But no, I had no idea I was going to cook for a living at that point.
Oh, okay.
I was just playing football and not sure what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And but to answer your question, so when I got out of high school, I was looking to hopefully get a scholarship and play some ball. But I had some injuries that didn't happen. Long story short, I did travel on my own for a couple of years. I hitchhiked all across the country.
Were you kind of a hippie or no?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure what I was.
Oh, something along
I'm
those.
still not.
Are you a
But,
drifter? Maybe you were a drifter.
I was. I was looking to see the world, and went out to California 2 weeks out of high school with a buddy of mine. He just got out of the Marine Corps, and hitched a ride with him, and loved Cali. And
Yeah.
everybody knows that about me that knows me, and love the water. And so I traveled all across the country for like 2 years.
Wow.
And then cut to a very, very, very good friend of mine was working at the Hotel Sofitel at the time off of, I guess, Bloomington and 494. He was cooking there very young. And then he followed, out of high school, he followed the chef to Chicago. And it was a French chef, and they worked at a restaurant called Serene's. And it was in Chicago. And I was traveling, and my buddy George, his name is George McCall, and he said, hey, if you want to come out here, you can. So I was like, I think about 19, and I went out there, stayed with him. I know the address too, Dearborn Division. That's where our apartment was. The restaurant was on off of Rush Street in Old Town. It was called Serene's, and she was the wife of Arnie Morton from Arnie's fame, and so they're a very well-known name. And a French restaurant, very hoity-toity. And I got a job in the kitchen, just prepping potatoes, and I remember cutting up like 20, 30 pounds of king crab for like the cold buffet table, and I was just mesmerized then by that kitchen and the smells and the aromas of that kitchen and the stocks, and that lit the spark. And then there was a sous chef that went to the Culinary Institute of America, and so I was talking to him, and I got some information, and that's what really lit the spark. And then I ended up sending away for information. I applied, got accepted. I had to work for a year because they wanted me to get more experience cooking full time, which I did. And then I went to school when I was, I guess, about 20,
Okay.
and been cooking ever since.
So tell me the hustle of a chef, especially new, where you don't yet have a following and you're just trying to learn the things. Long hours?
You know what? It wasn't that bad when I first started. My first job was in New York City at the Maurice restaurant, and it was I was just so jacked just to get this job because it was a tough gig to get, and it was union, so you worked about 40 hours a week.
So it was union.
It's because it's a hotel in New
Oh,
York, and so they're all
gotcha.
union. But it was interesting because the chef, which was very illegal, the chef would ask you or tell you to come in early and stay late if needed, and we weren't paid for that. And we were like, it was just a bunch of other people, men and women in the kitchen that were actually just like myself, young out of school. It was interesting too because this is the Park and Meridian Hotel, French hotel, French chef, all the upper management's French, and then you had all these young Americans that were in the kitchen,
Learning, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Learning.
So everybody was. I mean, it was just like it was one of the best French Nouvelle cuisine restaurants in New York at that time.
Okay.
So it was a great experience.
So you're going to maybe make fun of me, but did you ever watch Julia Child?
I did.
Oh my gosh, I love her.
Julia and Julia.
Yeah, I
Great
love
movie.
that show.
Great
I
movie.
actually
Still is.
did bake a cheese souffle. inspired by Julia Child, and I was like, I don't think I nailed it, but that was my first
How,
souffle.
how old were you then? You must
Oh
have been
God,
pretty
no,
young.
it was last year. No, it was last year. Like I
Oh,
literally,
oh,
my own food revolution, I think, started in 2020 when I was really bored at home, and I was like, dude, I should learn to be good in other rooms of the house. And the kitchen was one that I was woefully under under equipped for. So I literally watched Julia Child, and it was French. Like so much of the cooking basics are French,
good for you.
right? They're French. I don't know that I learned that much, but
No, it is. I mean, and people say, oh, like kind of, it's a common question throughout my whole life. Well, how do you, what do you do? What's Fusion Bistro, or what is it? And I always, in a restaurant, I had a restaurant in New York for like 7 years before we moved back to Minnesota, and it was similar style to what I was doing here, whether it was at the Harvest Restaurant Inn or at Mark's. But it was, I always say, well, it's rooted in French and Italian.
okay.
I mean, it is. And then from there, then, I don't profess to be, I mean, I'm not am I Italian chef? No. Am I French chef? No. But an American chef, if you love to cook, which, I would think is the case if you're in the business for a living, you just love to learn all kinds of things. And as you know, going out to eat,
Yeah.
I mean, there could be an Asian influence, there could
Yeah.
be this influence, but a lot of sauces or foundations are rooted in French.
French. Yeah.
More so even than Italian, just because of when you learn about the mother sauces and stocks and reductions and fumés. And a fumé is, for example, generally it's fish technically, but it's like a stock, more like a broth, but it's like usually of a fish nature, where you get the flavorings and aromatics, of mirepoix, which is vegetables and herbs, and fish, and it's gently seasoned and reduced, and then you can do something with that. So
Yeah. All sorts of things that are a little bit over my head, but I've tasted them and they're delicious. When you opened Mark's in Stillwater, was that, well, before Mark's, right? Because
right,
Mark's was open for 20 years. Is
20
that
years.
right?
Yeah, it was 20 years.
Right before that, you opened a smaller
Yep.
restaurant, correct?
And that was, we opened that up in 1995. That's when we arrived back in Minnesota. And then I was there from 95 until '02, which is 7
Okay.
years. And then we opened up Mark's in the same year, '02. But that was the Harvest Restaurant and Inn. And the oldest frame house in Stillwater. It was called the Brunswick Inn. It was on Olive Street across from the old Armory.
Okay. Okay.
Still there, freestanding house, but the oldest frame house in Stillwater. I think now it's probably 100 and, I'm not sure, 180 years old or something,
Wow.
185 years old. But, excuse me, but it was and I bought it. It was pretty ready to go. It was all done in Victorian. It was a 3-room bed and breakfast.
Okay.
It had a very special look. Each bed and breakfast room had a wood burning fireplace,
Oh, cool.
double jacuzzi, and like I said, all done in Victorian. And then the main level was the restaurant dining. That was like about 30 seats, wood burning fireplace, little chandelier, and then the kitchen was in the basement.
Kitchen was in
Very
the
small
basement.
kitchen. Yeah.
Wow. So you bought the whole
more
building?
like a cellar. Yeah,
So you ran the bed and breakfast too?
we did.
Okay.
And that was interesting.
I bet it was.
Because people say, like, most times when you own a bed and breakfast, you live there.
Yeah.
And we didn't. It wasn't big enough for that. So we had our first home back was in West St. Paul.
Okay.
And so, I mean, not a bad commute at all. But still, we
Yeah.
had to go back and
So you
forth
come from West St. Paul, make breakfast, and then
every weekend for 7 years.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
When did you just be a couple and have shenanigans?
What's couple? What's
What's that all about?
I do know what. No, I think I know what shenanigans is. But that's when, as you know, that's when
Yeah.
our kids were little. I think that
Yeah.
when we came back here, there were, I don't know, 6 and, oh boy, no, whatever, 6 and 3 maybe, or 5 and 2. So
Yeah.
and my wife, God bless her. I mean, she's the one, staying at home, taking care of,
Yeah.
those guys, and so it was, it's.
So it's just a lot of hustle when they're that young.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so and like I said, I mean, it was the bed and breakfast. I mean, it was it was good, but we didn't really actively really push it because I had the restaurant. But I mean,
Yeah.
it would sort of, the rooms would always kind of fill up, just 3 rooms on their own.
Yeah.
During the weekend. But yeah, I was back every weekend morning, Saturday, Sunday morning at 7:30.
Jeez. Well, in the face of Stillwater then, versus what it is now. It was mostly antiques, right? Through downtown
Well, and that,
that
yeah,
time?
and it's, yeah, definitely back in those days.
And
And
bed and breakfast?
you know how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
Stillwater is an antique town. Yeah, which it was, which is fine. But I mean, like I said, there definitely has been over the years, it's
Yeah.
evolved
Yeah.
into so much more than that. And which has just been, fantastic to see and be a part of.
100%. Don't you feel, and let's not be humble, let's just like straight up. Don't you feel like when you opened Mark's, that was a turning point for like, there's good food in Stillwater? Like it bubbled something, I feel.
It did. I mean, it was exciting. It was exciting because it was, a very old Asian restaurant. It was called Silver Lake Restaurant.
Silver Lake.
Silver Lake.
Okay.
It was old, and it had been there a long time. And it had been before that. It was it had the original sign in the back forever. It's called the Bamboo Inn. So people that are from Stillwater, they know the Bamboo Inn.
Bamboo Inn. Was it another place you stayed?
Oh no, that was the restaurant that was
That was
there
it called? It was
back in
called
the day.
Bamboo Inn, but it wasn't an inn where you would like
No,
stay upstairs or
no.
anything. Okay.
And like I think maybe 50s, but certainly 60s,
Okay.
60s and 70s. But I, it was old, and I was like looking to get on Main Street because, like I said, this old house was, it was such a compliment. People would go to the Harvest for special occasions, and we did fine on the weekends, but it was, I mean, it was such a compliment to say, like, say you and your husband want to come. We go there for our anniversaries or
Yeah,
my birthday,
yeah.
and I'm like, well, you need to come a little more than that, ideally.
Yeah.
But I mean, we did fine, but it was small. But I was looking to get on maybe definitely Main Street, or for a little more visibility.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was like perfect.
Yeah.
So we were able to get it and did a renovation, and opened up, in '02. But to answer your question. No, I'm flattered by that. I think it was exciting to definitely open that up, and people were, I mean, like I said, you put the paper up in your windows and you're doing renovation, then people are excited. They're gonna
Yeah.
come. They're gonna come in.
100%. That's the first sign of something
But
magical
I
happening.
think really what really got things going too was just opening up the Harvest in the '95, and that was it was tough, because it was an old house, didn't exactly look like your regular restaurant. But I like to think that kind of started things as well.
Set the stage for you.
Yeah, but no, I do get that compliment of now I'm an old guy, so I have been here for a while. But
Yeah.
people are very kind. They do, I have heard that it was what we did kind of helped kick things.
Oh, God, yeah. Matter of fact, in my world right now of the restaurant owners that I talk to frequently and try to learn from, every single one of them at one point in their career worked for you, whether it was behind the bar or making food, even dishwashing. They all have a
Now,
little
I got to
story.
remind people to take everything with a grain of salt, right? So, if it's good stuff, I'll take it.
Yeah.
If it's,
Bad stuff,
if
not
it's
so
negative,
much.
well, then, hey, I got to be able to defend myself. But you know what? And I joke about that, but I mean, and people know me. I'm like, well, as you know, running a small business or whatever, you got to get along with people. You're a family, but it's business.
Yeah.
And so I like to think I did my best to kind of, make that work.
Yeah.
And can you ever work hard enough? Can you ever talk enough to really try to like get your message across? And so it's a real, little, I'm not gonna say slippery slope, but
It's
you know
a
what I'm saying.
dance. It's a bit of a dance.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
But I'm proud of. I'm proud of. Like I said, we had a final. Who knows? Maybe because we had so much fun, I might have another one. But it was called Mark's Final Party. It was at top of Brian's, and a lot of we had a pretty good showing, and just so many great conversations
Yeah.
about what people that were there,
Memories,
and giving us some kudos for just work ethic and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, as you should. Okay, so I have burning questions. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Tell me a story about when things got real hot and heavy in the kitchen. So now that I wouldn't even call I'm a restaurant owner, and there's a divide a bit from back house and front of house, right?
There is.
There is. And
Which is unfortunate.
it is.
But
it exists in a way that it's really hard to shift that. But so you're back of house, you're running the kitchen. How do things get hot and heavy, and how do you tell me a story about how that goes, and then how you recover, because it is high stress.
No. And one thing it is, in the kitchen, when we're in the kitchen, I kind of, would always say, well, we're just doing our thing. We're not dealing with customers. We don't have to have a smile on our face. And I always, try to remind people in the kitchen, like, hey, there can be frustration about just being busy, being too busy and having to do because it's stressful,
Yeah.
it's like just, it has to happen like this. And, try to remind the people in the kitchen, like, hey, you don't know what it's like dealing with people on the other side. And so you have to, just try to remember that.
Yeah.
But so I always, and like I said, I was never, a waiter,
Yeah.
until I was in chef school, and I was a terrible waiter, but that was part of the program. But yeah, I mean, the people in the kitchen, you do what you do, and out front, well, let's just say both sides don't really see what other people do.
Yeah, you don't.
I mean, you think you do,
Yeah.
but it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, and you
Yeah.
got to just try to keep the peace.
Yeah.
And try to have respect for everybody's position.
Yeah.
But
But it gets fired. Like, what would
does, it
fire
does.
you up? What would really make you upset?
Well, specifically, and this was sobering, was the worst thing was when I would, and and I would usually hear about this later, which would almost make me upset, but I can see why they did it. When there was a real problem with a customer, not even employees, a customer that was unruly, not physically abusive, but that happened, or certainly verbally abusive, because it would happen. And anybody that worked for me in the front of the house, they know about this. Like we could have long waits. I mean, especially on a, because we took reservations for 6 or more. So then it was just a walk-in, and we had a wait list, and we take down your phone number and call you when the table's ready. And I'm sure you maybe were part of that. And sometimes it was an hour wait, hour and a half wait. Well, then people are drinking, and especially on a Friday or Saturday night. And I get it, you want to eat. You want to sit down, you have some drinks, and you could become a little irritated. And now, we're a little liquored up.
Yeah.
And but it would happen where customers would take it out on the host. And these are like generally 16, 17-year-old girls who are, just sweethearts and tough job. And they're dealing with
Super tough.
adults that are like children. I mean, they're cranky, you're a little drunk, you're tired. Maybe you fought with your wife or husband like an hour and a half ago
Yeah.
about whatever. And then you bring it in there, and then it would take it out on them. And so there was crying episodes. There was like, it got,
There's tears.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there were some customers that were, could be not okay. So I'd hear about that, and they wouldn't even tell me because they were afraid I would come out.
Yeah. And
And then I'm not even, and I got to be careful what I say and do.
yeah.
But so that was the hard, and that was rare. I mean, not like it happened a lot, but that's the thing about it. But as far as what could happen on a more frequent basis, it's just stressful to be so busy.
Yeah.
Which is a good problem.
Yeah.
It's a good problem.
Yeah.
But it's just, and then people are talking too much, and they start snapping, and as you know, people deal
Yeah.
with stress in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a perfect world, you just button your lip and tighten your belt.
It's
stay
hard
at
to
it.
button the lips sometimes,
I know,
Mark.
I know. So, and then it can, and if you let one person start yapping,
Yeah.
somebody else starts yapping, and so it's just bad for morale. So
Yeah.
that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough to just corral that in without being too,
Yeah.
too strict.
Yeah.
Too
'Cause
much
you
of
wanna
a.
make it have like fun, but you have expectations and
I mean, it's not very fun when you're just getting, as I know, as it happens at your place.
Yeah.
When you're just getting crushed.
yeah.
And people in the industry knows what that means.
Yeah.
It's not much fun.
No, so crush, I'm gonna back out that crushed, because if you don't work in this industry, you don't really know what it feels like. But what happens is you get a ton of people all ordering at once. They all want their meals at once, their drinks at once, and there's no human possible way to get it done in a timely manner that they can appreciate. So everybody, like, anxious, a little snappy, I mean, it's a fun hustle. We're in it a little bit for that because it's an
Absolutely.
adrenaline rush
Oh, absolutely.
and you want to deliver on it, but every one mistake and everyone's off track. And
No,
then, yeah,
it's
it
true,
builds.
and
Yeah.
that would certainly, in our cuisine. I mean, everything was very hands on, and we did every plate to order, and so, much to our credit, I mean, we would just be so intense and so good because these, people that I had working for me and in the kitchen were just, I mean, just good people, very talented, and so we can handle it when we're busy, but you just can't have one misstep. And like I said, Proper is one of my favorite places to go to. But like when those tickets get lined up, whether it's for drinks or food, it's just like, ugh. It's tough because you can't even get to that 10th ticket
Right.
for a while.
Right.
You just can't. And
No.
so you just almost have to accept that. And customers, of course, they don't really want to accept it. But
No. You can
but
feel
you,
your
you just
heart rate
got you
rise.
just got to get through it.
Yeah.
And then again, it comes to talent
Yeah.
on how well you get through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I always do say, when you're good at what you do,
Yeah.
you make it look kind of easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
But I do say at any job, anything, you could be a comedian, you could be whatever. It's just having your own business and you're selling widgets or
Yeah.
a big warehouse full of used clothing.
Yeah.
If you're making a bunch of dough,
Yeah.
it's for a reason. You're good at what
Yeah.
you do.
You're good
and
at
not
what you
just
do.
anybody can do it.
Yeah. So that really brings me to, okay, 2020, we all get shut down, right? And everyone is kind of trying to figure out their way, what they're going to do next. Are they going to reopen? How do we use this time? It's very tumultuous. And Mark Hanson, what is he going to do? And you were going to do some renovations. Take me to that point and today, because there's still, if I'm on the streets, you're like the talk on the streets. Have you heard that? You know what Mark's doing? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what Mark's doing. I don't know. So tell me what happened there. What drove your decision to close your doors, and what's next for you?
Sure. Well, I mean, going back to the pandemic, I mean, we didn't miss a beat. I was open every night. Do you know I was the soup Nazi, and I was selling soup during the day?
Oh no, I just watched that Seinfeld. I love that show.
Well, I did that.
No soup for you.
And that's exactly what I did. I mean, when the pandemic first happened, I'm like, it's a perfect opportunity to do something silly. And I
Sure.
did it. And it was just me during the day. I make soup, bring it out, have it all ready, got all the to-go containers. And I shouldn't say this, but it was just cash. I didn't, because I was just me. I didn't even want to work the, I reported everything, of course. And
You don't want to do the POS.
Right.
Do they have to do like this? $6 soup, look away, not
No.
make eye contact.
pretty much, because even, I mean, and you had to bring it out to the curb.
Yeah.
People weren't even allowed to come in,
No.
right?
You weren't bringing it out. You had a person, didn't you?
No, I would bring it out.
You did the making, the bundling, and the
Yeah, and that was a big issue, as everybody knows, in the pandemic. Just all the to-go containers.
yeah.
And Lolo's right next to me. I mean, they were busy.
Yeah.
And we were busy. I mean, so
Yeah.
the soup thing was just fun. But I mean, some days I make like $20, and some days, And I joke because a lot of my friends, would come in, and they drank more beer and drinks than soup, courtesy of me, and it was fun.
They drank their lunch.
It was fun.
Yeah.
But we did that. I did that. It was just a fun thing. But still, I mean, the phone rang, and people, appreciated it. And then, but then we did take out. We did take
Yeah.
out, and I didn't miss one night.
I feel like the city stepped up. Like in general, the community is like, we're saving all the places we love. And they stepped up and they
Oh,
came
yeah.
out and they wanted to make sure.
They realized,
Yeah.
how difficult it was for
Yeah.
people. So, but I mean, and that seems like a blur now. But we did our takeout and did that,
Yeah.
and like anybody. But we were hustling, and it was just like me and my wife and a couple people. So it was just a very few of us, and we're still, we're making a few bucks, and,
Yeah.
and it worked. But anyway, so even like that, I remember our last day of service was December 30th of 2020.
Okay.
Yes, because the December 31st was my wife's birthday, and I wanted to close before that so I could finally spend New Year's Eve with her, which I had never done.
Which you probably never ever. I mean,
No,
for the 20
I worked every New Year's Eve.
Did you work almost every day of your life?
Yeah.
Once you opened Mark's.
I did.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
at the Harvest, there was one year where I worked every day. of the year,
Every day.
which was ridiculous.
That is commitment,
And I can't
people.
believe my wife is still married to me.
Yeah, God bless her. You get
No
like an
kidding.
extra, I don't know, wings in heaven or
But
something. I think so.
and that's a double-edged sword of being in this business, and certainly if you're a chef. I mean, if you put your heart and soul into it,
Yeah.
you work more than you should.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you do it.
Yeah. So we're fast forwarding.
Okay, so-
December 31st.
Yep. So that was the last day of service.
Yeah.
We decided to close for 3 months, which I'd never done, and we were busy. So it wasn't it wasn't because of any reason other than
No,
just
you're always busy.
just
Yeah.
wanting to finally take a winter off. I'd never done that. And then with the idea of reopening after 3 months. So we went on some nice trips, me and my wife, that was the idea. And went to California, went to Puerto Rico, went to Miami. And then we came back and then, meeting with some friends. And we said, well, maybe it's time to do a little remodeling. And a friend of mine, very good friend, gave me an idea about maybe, just switching the bar up. And we did.
Yeah.
And so I go, okay, I mean, we've been closed for 3 months. If we're closed longer, it just doesn't
No big
really
deal.
matter.
Yeah.
So did some remodeling for the bar, and I was kind of going for just a little cleaner, kind of more of a, we'll say, modern Miami look, which I was enthralled with. I loved it, and we painted everything white and changed some lighting. Ended up doing some behind the scenes remodeling as well. And it took longer than I thought, which of course it always does. And so then a couple months went by, and then we're working on finally then restaffing, and we had a few issues that we had to deal with, which
Oh, it's a really tricky time.
prolonged it.
Yeah.
And so now we're into, I guess, May or June, and I don't know what it was. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but me and my wife, we kind of looked at each other and said, well, we're talking about, quality of life and all these good things. And with the economy and the recession and one thing too that, I remember my one son told me, I'd always said, well, I mean, at my age, I'm still basically pretty healthy. While I'm still healthy, maybe I still want to work a couple more years and, make so much money as I can.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, Dad, while you're still healthy, why don't you think about not working and doing some things that maybe you want to do while you're still healthy? And try.
That's a genius idea.
And I didn't. And I go, you know what?
Yeah.
And that one stuck with me. And so we decided to maybe look at the market. And then, of course, with the economy and the recession, possible recession, and interest rates going up, I thought, well, maybe this summer, which is last summer, is better time to look at it than next year. So let's test the waters.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. That's what we did. And no realtor was involved. And I didn't, I very subtly started, testing the waters on
Yeah,
that. And it worked out.
Yeah.
So on to my next chapter.
Yeah.
Not
And
sure what it is,
Yeah, that was the burning question. You're not done.
No,
No.
not done.
Yeah, I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah, I'm just, I make this joke of, I'll admit, I have during lunch, I am keeping busy during the day, and I always have something going on, it seems, but certainly not anything like it was. So I'll get my lunch sometimes at Cub, and I'll, I'm not bashing Cub at all, but I would get their soup or maybe just a piece of grilled chicken.
Sure.
And it's just a nice light lunch. But
Yeah.
But I see other older fellas like me doing that, and I go, oh my God,
Oh,
am
shoot.
I one of them?
What have I become?
And I am.
Yeah.
But I
Oh.
refuse to,
No. We don't talk about Bruno.
yeah,
Yeah.
believe it or admit it. So
Right.
I kind of make that joke. But no, I am not ready to really, in my mind, be part of that group.
Yeah.
So I do. It'd be great if I could find the right fit, which now I have some time to work on it. And I tell people it could be something quite small or it could be larger. And
Yeah.
if it's larger, then it's a matter of maybe other people want to put a little skin in the game.
Yeah.
Then that'd be fun. It'd be great. And like I said, I don't have to do it, but I would like to do it.
Yeah.
But ideally, something smaller really intrigues me. And I think we might have talked about this
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
But obviously, if it's smaller, then it's less overhead, less number of people working, which is unfortunate. You have to think about that as far as looking for
Oh. People are hard.
people to work and
Yeah.
employees. I mean, that's something everybody knows about. So So and then I could, I think, really control it better. Maybe less funds invested for renovation, all that, but still maybe do the work
Yeah.
that I really like to do on a much smaller scale.
Yeah. Leave us with something about Mark that no one really knows about you.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I would say sometimes, a question people do ask is like, because I've been cooking, ever since I was, 20, 21, and I just turned 65 last week. So
Happy belated birthday.
thank you. Did I say 65?
65.
55.
55?
45?
Probably
Yeah,
45.
I think
yeah.
it's 65. But people do ask over the years, what would you have done, if you hadn't been a chef? And honestly, too, I will say I had no idea what I wanted to do. And that's one of the reasons why I traveled and hitchhiked. I was just like, you know what? I'm a talker. I love to, I love geography. So I traveled and just wanted to see the world, and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I've always struggled with that. But I think in my heart, I would have been like a grade school teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I love little kids, always have. And even when I was in high school, I was part of a program. It was called Learning Centers back in the day. And I was a teacher's assistant at a school. I think he called it a magnet school for like problem kids.
Oh.
And I never forgot that. And it was really just a lot of empathy for kids that didn't grow up, as fortunately as I did.
Sure.
So I would have really took a lot of pride, and I would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I mean, not even big kids though either, because
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but the bigger they are, then
Bigger the problems.
well, you have less control.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Did I say control?
I think you did.
Maybe
Is
that
that
means,
a theme?
Maybe that means a lot to me. I don't know. but to be a part of a child's life when they're like 5 or 6
Yeah.
or 7,
Yeah.
I don't know.
pretty cool.
That intrigued me. So
Yeah.
I could have seen myself doing that.
All right.
I think I would have loved that.
Well, who knows what's next from our? I mean, everybody's on pins and needles. We'll say that.
And I will say, I have looked around the area, and I'm from St. Paul, and I mean, and as you can imagine, I mean, there's opportunities in St. Paul and Minneapolis, with the economy
Yeah,
and this
yeah.
and that could be pretty good situations if you want to take a chance on
Yeah.
that, which I'm not afraid to. But then I love Stillwater. I
Yeah.
do. I love Stillwater, and I like to say Stillwater's been good for me, and I think I've been good for Stillwater.
Yeah.
So, and with what's going on, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So if I could Stillwater, I wouldn't mind that a bit. So
Okay.
you can keep your eyes open for
We'll
me.
we'll keep our eyes open. Clearly, if you see Mark on the street, give him a
Pe-
high
people,
five.
People have. I mean,
Yeah.
and I will say, I'll laugh. I'm enjoying happy hour. I used to even like way back in the day, as a chef, you never enjoy happy hour.
No.
Ever. I go that. I would miss that more than anything else, and I guess that means I like to drink. But
Well, I think
or
that's
I
fair.
socialize.
Yeah.
But I enjoy that more than anything, just because I never ever could enjoy that because
Yeah.
you're always working.
You're always working.
So,
Yeah.
So if people have seen me out and about, that could be, socializing a little bit.
Well, that's
here.
good.
Yeah.
Pull up a chair is what I'm saying. Pull up a chair.
And always good to see you
Good
out
to
and
see.
about. so
Yes, and I'm always out and about. I mean, I wear my shoes thin on these streets. I love it. I love it.
I like that.
Thanks for sharing a little of your story.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, you bet.
I sure appreciate it.
You bet. We will see you next time on Chew the Fat.